Mambo Vipi, what's happening? My name is Anyiko Owoko and I am a lover of arts, culture and everything African. And here we grant you front row access to your favorite celebrities, creators, the biggest personalities and industry experts. Come with me, you're now a VIP. This is what to expect on this week's episode.
I can't really say that it's something that's easy to do in this country. We haven't really set up systems that support actors the way that we should be supported yet. So it really is a labor of love. I made this little deal with God that if I was going to act, I have to end up being international eventually. And interestingly enough, that's what happened. Ideally, I would love that we are able to be sustained here as actors and be able to thrive in that way and not have to actually go outside the continent in order to feel like we're thriving as actors. I think that that's the direction we should be going, to know that we have enough here. We have enough here. We have the stories, we have the talent. We just need to learn how to figure out how to support ourselves here.
I think it can be more bankable. I have sustained my life so far from telling these stories, but they haven't just all been exclusively Kenyan stories. I've had to find ways to go beyond the border, at least, in terms of trying to find work. But I think our stories are just amazing. I studied out of the country, and I think coming back, I remember on the plane back, I remember thinking, what type of stories am I going to tell now that I'm coming back? And it just opened a floodgate.
One of the big challenges that we have is people really rush. Like you have a story idea, then you write it on your script, then you go and shoot your draft 3 of the script. You've really not taken the time to actually develop it and even think about your audiences at the end of it. You know, like how will this land with people? How will this conversation work? And I'd say that's the biggest challenge that we have in the writing bit of it, in the development bit of it. There's no funding to keep the writer writing. And also everybody wants to you want to rush to your next film, your next big thing, and without giving your film or your story the time.
Hey, what's up? And I hope you're good from wherever you're listening in. Welcome back to VIP Access. It's always great to have you here with us. I'm particularly excited because this week we're discussing and spotlighting Kenyan TV and film. I would love to be doing a lot more around Kenyan film and TV. You all know me, I'm into music so much, but from time to time, we do make sure that we're discussing other elements of the creative industry. And that's why this week we're discussing Kenyan film and TV. Today's topic of discussion is making Kenyan stories bankable and the balance between craft and commerce. Kenyan film and TV, alongside its writers, filmmakers and actors, is gaining unprecedented visibility across regional and global platforms. But at the same time, a lot of things are happening to do with global streamers. Turning powerful stories into sustainable, bankable productions has always been the question. There's a clear need to better align stakeholders across every stage of production from script to screen. So today we want to unpack the tension and balance between creative integrity and commercial viability while exploring the full cycle of a production, straight from financing, story development, writer's room, casting, producing, directing, scoring, financing, and distribution. How can we continue to make stories that are genuinely relatable to our audience, but at the same time are succeeding commercially? I'm going to be joined by an amazing group of guests on the show today. I have Arnold Mwanjila, who is an award-winning director and writer who's behind some of your favorite series and films that you have watched. I also have Mumbi Maina, who's a Kenyan actor working across film and TV in Africa and internationally. You might have known her from her role as Zakia in the Netflix series Sense8, or even her appearance in The Matrix Resurrections. We're also going to be joined by Susan Mbogo, who's executive director at DocuBox, which is an East Africa documentary film fund. Without further ado, let's get straight into it.
My name is Susan Mbogo. I am the executive director at DocuBox. I am also a producer, currently working on 2 documentaries. I've worked in different aspects of production. I've been a production accountant, production manager, line producer. Clearly, I started from the bottom going up.
Hi, my name is Mumbi Maina. I'm an actor. I've been acting for a long time. A minute. started off doing local films and still doing local films and series. And I had the privilege or the honor to branch off into doing more international work. I've also worked in Nollywood. Yeah, acting for me has really just been a passion. It sort of found me, I always say by mistake, and we've clung together for the rest of our lives. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here and to talk to you guys.
Her performance in Nafsi, oh God, that film. And her Women, I'm getting goosebumps just remembering this film. Women in Film Award. Mumbi continues to build a cross-continental career spanning Africa, Europe, and Hollywood. Oh my God, you're such an amazing actor.
So I'm Arnold Mwanjila. I'm a writer, director. I have been in this industry for as many years as some of my panelists. Hello. we are dating ourselves, but black don't crack, right? Anyway, I've been writing and directing for as long as I can remember. I've been writing for even longer than that, all sorts of stories, and I'm just excited to be here to share with you guys and just have a lovely chat. So looking forward to that.
What is the process of the work that you do? And at what point did it become bankable for you? Like for you, Arnold, you're a writer and director, but at the core, a writer, a storyteller. He was just telling me that, do you want to tell them what you're telling me about the card thing?
When I was younger, I would imagine myself in the future having these business cards that I would dish out in events like this. And I would just say, Arnold Mwanjila, conversationalist, because I wanted to just talk to people. But I am actually a very severe introvert. So I don't know how that matches. I don't know. It's a weird thing. Yeah.
So how does it change from wanting to be a conversationist to becoming a storyteller and also being able to express yourself as a storyteller?
I don't think there's a big difference. I think that was me telling myself a story already of what type of person I kind of want to be. And that's just engaging with people in having conversations. And I think for us, when we are talking about, for me, let me speak for myself, when I'm talking about like the art that I'm doing or the writing or the stories I'm trying to present to the world, I think these are all conversational pieces. This is me trying to have a conversation with my audience, maybe spark something in their mind or, get them feeling a certain way. So for me, this is kind of still the same thing. It's just now not one-on-one. It's me going into my own room somewhere and then cooking up that thing and then bringing out the dish.
Is it bankable to tell Kenyan stories?
I don't know. Is it bankable? Is the question we're all here to answer, and I don't think there's a true answer. I think it is. I think it can be more bankable. I have sustained my life so far from telling these stories. They haven't just all been exclusively Kenyan stories. I've had to find ways to go beyond the border, at least, in terms of trying to find work. But I think our stories are just amazing. I studied out of the country, and I think coming back, I remember playing back, what type of stories am I going to tell now that I'm coming back? And it just opened a floodgate. There was just like, I think I landed with 3 or 4 different story ideas that I want to explore. There's just something about being here and being in Kenya and being home that gives us these stories. And one of those stories is Talia. So I did end up doing one of the stories as a feature film. But I did get informed by me hanging out with my mom in the coast and just like listening to her talk a lot about genies and things like that. So our stories are bankable. I think it's about finding the audience, which is kind of what we want to talk about. Yeah.
Mumbi, you say that you're not supposed to be doing what you're doing.
Truly, because I hadn't planned on being an actor. You know the way people give stories of when I was a kid, I knew I wanted to do this, and I knew I wanted to be an artist. I knew I wanted to entertain. So in fact, I started by dancing when I was in my teens. I used to teach salsa, in fact, and hip hop as a B-girl, by the way. So when I got my first audition, it really was a by mistake thing. My sister was doing an audition herself, and the director at the time, she's called Mbogo, she looked at me and she said, I think you should try. And I said, no. If you want me to do anything behind the camera, I'm good. In front of the camera, you're mad. Like, I don't know what to do. So I played with it. I played with the role because the character was a fun and cute one. And the interesting thing, we ended up doing Unseen, Unsung, Unforgotten. And when I went back to the corporate world, which is what I was involved in at the time, I realized if I woke up and decided I have all the money in the world, what's the one thing I'll be doing? And I realized that's the only thing, acting, that made me feel happy to wake up, to go to work. It didn't feel like work. It felt like an exploration of myself. And since then, we've just been together, even when I've tried to let her go. Yeah, because I can't really say that it's something that's easy to do in this country. You know, we haven't really set up systems that support actors the way that we should be supported yet. So it really is a labor of love. Yeah. Have I answered your question?
Yes, you have.
Okay.
And is that why some of the international opportunities came to you, or did you go looking for them because it was hard here? How did those opportunities come about?
Interestingly, the first one, which was Sense8, the auditions were here, given the storyline and how it is. I'm trying not to be very preachy here, but I'm a very spiritual person. I'd made this little deal with God that if I was going to act, I have to end up being international eventually. And interestingly enough, that's what happened. I got a sign and One Fine Day Films at the time was doing their first workshop with actors, and the Oscar delegation came and I said, that is the sign. But anyway, I digress. So I went for the auditions for Sense8 here, and we went from 30 girls to 10 girls to 2 of us, and it was a grueling process, but that's actually what got me in. Ideally, I would love that we are able to be sustained here as actors and be able to thrive in that way and not have to actually go outside the continent in order to feel like we're thriving as actors. I think that that's the direction we should be going, to know that we have enough here. We have enough here. We have the stories, we have the talent. We just need to learn how to figure out how to support ourselves here. Yeah.
I think that's actually a good place to segue into Susan, although I don't want to throw you off if there's something you're planning to say, but when you talk about there's need for more support, and generally in the industry, there's just more need to have better structures, better funding. It's highly expensive to be an artist, period. Whether you're a musician, an actor, or even a content creator, you know, it costs a lot to brand yourself, to put yourself out there, to produce content. And where's the money coming from if you're not gigging? So I'm constantly just trying to figure out how we can help move our industry together. And I think that's why I brought you, Susan, because obviously DocuBox has been really working, trying to move the industry forward and funding actors, filmmakers on projects. So I'd love to hear from you what you feel about this conversation.
I do agree with Mumbi. I know we do need more support. I will say DocuBox is a non-profit, so we do need more structures and more support, more policies. Weirdly, today there was a whole conversation about the creative economy bill that's in Parliament, I think. And there was a whole discussion around it. And so it was very clear to everyone that, this is not working because what you're putting together is not really sustainable for the ecosystem, for the creative ecosystem. So I genuinely think we need to lobby for policies that actually push for the filmmakers industry to be recognized, or rather the creative industry to be recognized as a whole industry that actually brings in money. I don't know how many got to watch Too Early for Birds the last weekend, and the whole production that stood on stage. Those are jobs that we actually employ in our productions, in film, in theater. But then the support from government or investment or the Ministry of Trade is not a reflection of what it is. There's barely any, if there's any. So I think there's an important conversation to have on how we can make our stories bankable, but not just as us, but then how can we also hold the government accountable to making the industry work for us, how it should work.
And in terms of DocuBox, how does it work? If I'm a filmmaker or someone is a filmmaker out there and they want some sort of funding, there's too many people to get some of these opportunities. Who gets the opportunity? How do you vet? How can somebody get that opportunity? And what's the available opportunities anyway?
DocuBox exists to support the East African filmmaking ecosystem, and we support it through 3 ways, and that's granting, capacity building, and audience building. And so of course, the major thing that people need is funding, but every time we do a grant call, we'll always attach to the capacity building call. So depending on the kind of call that is being put out, we have 2 different kinds of calls. There's what we call the general call, which is any idea. It doesn't need to be tied to a certain theme or a certain topic. So for those ones, it's whoever's story is best comes up first. So we get external readers. We don't do it internally. So we get, because we are connected like globally. So we kind of get like people to help vet the projects, and then we get a short list. And then from the short list, we do the interviews, and then based on what DocuBox stands for, then that's the project that gets selected. And of course, the number of projects that get funding is dependent on the grant money that we have available. So sometimes it's going to be 5, sometimes it's going to be 3. So like 3 short films, 3 short fiction, 3 short docs, 3 featured docs. Or sometimes it's going to be 5 featured docs, 5 short fiction, 5 short films. Then the other type of funding we have is a programmatic call, which is tied to a certain theme. So 2023, I'd say, I think we've done 4 different programmatic projects. So one is Get Real, Kenya Creates, and most of these films, people have seen them out there. So like Sukari, which had like 13 nominations from Kalasha, came from a programmatic call, which was around gender. SRHRJ, if you've seen the film Float, which has been doing amazing in festivals and in screenings, that came from a programmatic kind of funding. A film like Jimbi, which is also part of the Kalasha nominations, is also a programmatic kind of call. So we do, depending on the funding that is there or the partners who are coming in, the funding gets to vary. But then again, the one thing that's always consistent is if we do a call, we're going to do like a development lab for your stories and a post-production lab for it.
Amazing. I want to go back to the storytelling, and that's for you too if you want to respond. I mean, any one of you, I think there's a general perception in this industry that the TV and film industry has improved technically significantly over the years, but not so much the storytelling. Is there any truth to that? Because when it comes to Kenyan stories, Kenyan shows, the content Kenyans are watching, it is always like Nollywood or there's the essay content. I think things are changing. I don't know if Nollywood is as popular as it used to be anymore. Yes, within the Kenyan audience, I don't think it's as popular as it used to be before, or maybe it is, and I don't know.
Whenever I hear that, first thing I go back to is my own script and be like, where have I messed up? You know, that's one. I'll say this. We are harsher on ourselves. That's one. But I think there is some truth to it. And the reason I say this is because I think, even me personally, the shows and the movies that I do watch that are local are very particular. Like, I have to go looking for them, and I have to like look for what I'm going to really enjoy in them. Story-wise, technically, man, the things that our Kenyan cinematographers and lighting technicians and whatnot can do is just insane. Sound too has improved. I'll say this, our stories have also kind of improved. If you look at even what you were just talking about, Sukari is such a cool idea, right? Like, think about like movies like those. Float is insane, right? So we do have really good movies and really have really good stories. I think there's a challenge of also the main audience finding them. So for instance, the vast majority of people here haven't watched Sukari or Float, right? The vast majority of people here haven't watched a lot of the things that actually do feel like are better and are at home. And as much as we say we are looking for, validation out there, we want our audiences at home to see these things and to tell us these things are amazing. And so our challenge is getting them to you guys to see them. So I think our stories are good. I think we need to just
get them out there, because as you're talking, I'm hearing like there also seems to be a gap in terms of the promo and the marketing or the accessibility. It's like maybe somebody wants to access, but ata hawajui iko wapi.
Yes.
And like, for instance, I saw something on socials. I was like, this is really cool. Like, I saw Kalasha had a calendar of the screenings of some of the films, and I don't know if shows, but that have been nominated. I'm like, this is what I want to see, because every time you go to check what's happening at a cinema, unaona just some blockbuster films from wherever, and it's cool, but you rarely see like African stories, Kenyan stories, if it's not festival season, maybe it's NBO festival season or independent filmmakers pushing their own thing. But for the first time, I don't know if Kalasha does this every year, I saw that they announced like you can go watch these films in different places. So I think we need more of that. And even Goethe Institute is screening films.
That's definitely part of the conversation in terms of distribution and marketing and stuff. And we are doing terribly on that front. I'll be just frank. And the superstar producers are doing better. And people like Susan are trying to create that ecosystem. I'll try and speak also now in terms of the writing and the direction as well. I think also for us, the problem is not just that the ideas are not there, because we have brilliant, like I listen to people and we have some brilliant ideas. It's now moving from idea to script to then film. I think we definitely rush that process very fast. We move from idea to something showing up on screen in like 2 weeks, right? Every now and then there can be some brilliant thing that comes out of that. But I think the vast majority of work needs time, because personally, for me, when I'm sitting down with the story, it takes so long before I just go, aha, this is where this thing makes sense as a story and goes like this. And this is the themes that we're dealing with. I have to live with a story for even years before I can even sit down to write the script itself. But we don't have that space to do that. And that's an opportunity for those entrepreneurs out there and producers to find ways in which you can give us time and financing for the development of our projects to make them better. So yeah, that's a big thing for me that I'm trying to also work through. So yeah, if you're an entrepreneur out there who's thinking about that, talk to me. I have ideas. Oh, also financiers and investors.
I agree with Arnold. I think one of the big challenges that we have is people really rush. Like you have a story idea, then you write it on your scripts, then you go and shoot your draft 3 of the script. You've really not taken the time to actually develop it and even think about your audiences at the end of it. You know, like how will this land with people? How will this conversation work? And I'd say that's the biggest challenge that we have in the writing bit of it, in the development bit of it. There's no funding to keep the writer writing. And also you want to rush to your next film, your next big thing, and without giving your film or your story like the time. You know how when you're launching a product, maybe like jewelry, you will wait until it's, you'll work on it until it's perfect. I feel like sometimes we don't treat our films or our projects as products that are actually worth putting in time and then waiting for the return to come in. Because if you do write a good story, it will sell.
I have to agree with that, because even from an actor's perspective, we also feel when the script has been rushed, because we're also not given time. The same thing you're saying is like, what's interesting is that the audience feels when an actor is not fully invested as well. And when the story has not been fully well written. I think I was very spoiled to have started off with Mali, because Mali was a hit. I don't know, your age will show whether you loved Mali or not. But it had such a huge impact on Kenyans. And at first we thought that maybe it was just because it was the first soapy and it were in people's living rooms 3 times a week, right? We thought that was it. But the impact was ridiculous. And part of it was because Kenyans have been hungry for our own stories, and honestly just moshene, because that's what Mali really was. It was just a lot of things that felt so relatable to the stories that we see on news or whatever. The other thing that I remember really had a huge impact was Nafsi. And a lot of it was simply because it felt, again, true to home. And one thing that I have to say, those 2 producers, that's why it stands out for me so much, was they took their time with marketing. They were very specific about it. And I feel like that's something that's often rushed, because I think people expect the actors to just sell the shows or sell the films, and the actor can only do so much if they don't have the material for it, but also they need that backup and support. And the story does need to resonate as well. So I feel like a part of us just needs to almost go back to basics and not try so hard to push too far to reach for the international things and the audiences that will find it. I'm like, just come back home, because we have the stories. My gosh, we have enough here. The talent, again, is here, but we're just not allowing ourselves that confidence to be fully authentic and let it be seen as it is. Because no matter how perfectly well it's done, if it doesn't resonate, it doesn't resonate. And the actor can't even, doesn't have material to work with as well. Because that's what the audience connects with, right? Filmmakers, of course, they'll look and say, yeah, man, the lighting was so good. Man, the sound, we can't help it. It's who we are. We're very technical. We like to see that. But then the audience will be like, oh, I'm seeing something. Yes, it's beautiful to look at, but there's something that's pulling me to this story, and it's the humanness of it. Right? That to me is what acting is. It's just connecting with human stories and our own self-awareness.
Based on what you just said right now and your experience in the industry since when you started, what change have you experienced in terms of the kind of stories that maybe have come to you as an actor? Because I've seen some actresses talking, like I even saw Lupita. Somebody asked her like, yeah, you won an Academy Award and stuff. And she was like, it was actually a very difficult period for me because I was suffering health-wise. But then she also segued and said, and after that, all the roles that were coming to her were the same roles. Like she was being cast for just like a slave or this woman suffering. And she was like, I declined all those roles because I didn't want to be typecast. So for the time you've been in the industry, what kind of change have you seen in terms of the roles that come to you or that you generally see in the industry? Because I think when you talk about bankable stories, it's not just to mean that this story has done well and earned whatever amount, but there are times when as an actor or as a producer or as a writer, I'm sitting on gold. Like, this is a great story. And it's just, vile mtu ataiproduce, I hope it will reach home, but it's a great story. So are you also like judging that when scripts come to you? Have you had to turn down some projects? What has been your experience just judging the stories that come your way?
All that keeps ringing in my head is if I see one more adaptation. My God. One more. Again, it comes back to just having some confidence in our own writing and our own storytelling. Because it's a bit of a hard question because sometimes an actor can make a script better depending on how they connect with the character. I know that there are times I've had war with directors because creative differences, because I'm like, I see where you're trying to go with this and I've connected with the character. I know what you're trying to do, so, can we collaborate? So if you're lucky enough to have a director who you can work with that way, bless. The stories that I've gotten, again, adaptations, and it's just wild. I don't know why, but we've tried to make them as Kenyanized as possible. And it's a catch-22 because it's sad, because on one hand, I'm like, okay, it's just the same thing that we're getting. It's either about a wealthy, toxic family or about crime. That's as hard hitting as, I'm sorry, but that's all I have personally been seeing on screen.
Well, Showmax is dead, so...
Is it? But I mean, like, Chocolate
Who's
Empire
mad?
was quite different.
Anyway.
You've seen Chocolate Empire, right?
I've seen it. I even have a few scenes in it.
That's different.
It's different, but you also know
It's very different,
that it's also an
actually.
adaptation, right? A much older series, essay as well.
Okay. Are they localized?
Second Family wasn't, which was nice. But then unfortunately now for a story like that, they were not well prepared. It was rushed. Same thing. The writing itself was good, but then the logistics on set was so horrible because there was barely pre-production. There was just drama. It just wasn't working the way it should have been working, and the show was cancelled. So people always complain. A lot of audience members, when Showmax was alive, would complain that there's no show that actually even gets to second season or third season. Whenever they latch onto a show, it's cancelled. Whenever they start loving something, it's gone, which of course affects us actors in the entire industry every damn time. But yeah, our stories just haven't been put out there. So I don't know.
I wanted to ask you, Susan, about the stories as well, because where you sit, you said we don't review the stories. We have like an external board or group of people. But when the stories come back to you, the kind of feedback that you get from them, what's the feedback? Like, are most of the storytellers, filmmakers applying with ideas of stories, are they like bankable stories in your opinion? And then the other thing I want to ask all of you is like, what's the future of our stories and productions with the fall and changes in these international platforms? Like, they can wake up any day, like Showmax did and say, this is happening tomorrow, because these are not like Kenyan platforms. Some of them are African, and then they are bought by other non-African organizations who have other, ways of running their company or ways of viewing the market. So what's the future for Kenyan stories?
In terms of the kind of stories that we get, DocuBox has been in existence for 13 years, right? And when we started, we are a documentary film fund, but we are supporting fiction now. And you can see the difference, or you can see the growth in the documentary space in Kenya and in East Africa in the last 13 years. So yes, we are receiving amazing stories. I think it just depends on the way it is. Are we at development? Are we at production? Are we at post? But we do have amazing, amazing stories. And yes, they are bankable. If you look at films like Battle for Laikipia, which has been selling out the cinema for the last God knows how long, Softy. If you look at How to Build a Library, these are stories that are doing amazing out there. So yes, we do have bankable stories. I think it's just the courage to tell them and the time to actually develop the stories. As for the fiction space, we really haven't been in it that much. We're just about to do our very first feature fiction call. So I will answer that question about fiction films being bankable after 3 years.
I'll hold you to that.
On the question about what's the future for us.
Yeah.
In 2030, we will have the largest young population in the world, right? And these are people who are literally consuming whatever is African. If you look, there's a whole trend in Kenya right now about young people just consuming Kenya. Buy Kenya, build Kenya. Like people are buying Kenyan-made brands, from fashion to jewelry. People are coming out to watch Kenyan films, just that it's not in the cinema spaces. But there has been like an increase of the alternative spaces that you can actually get to watch Kenyan films or African films. So if you look at like Kuza Film Club, which started small, but right now it's really thriving. Mugambi with his Monday movie nights, which started before COVID, because every December he does Kenyan films. And December is always his biggest month.
Even Mengi Film Club by Wanjeri Kakuru, there are screenings at the mall, and it's free.
And all these are free spaces, but they're like literally all growing. So like people are just coming with their friends. So yes, there's a whole appetite for people who want to watch these films. And like you said, they're not that easily accessible, because when filmmakers do their films and it's not bought by Netflix, it's not bought by Showmax, you have very limited spaces where you can actually have it seen by the audience and the public, unless you have maybe the resources or you're willing to go the extra mile and create your own platform like Omar and June did for their films. So if you want to watch Sukari, it's on Rafu TV. Just plugging them there, but all their films are there because they figured that's how they will get to their audience. Feel It figured that's how they will get to their audiences, right? So there is a whole audience that's really hungry for Kenyan stories, for African stories. It's just trying to figure out how to get to them. And again, the audience really wants good stories, not substandard, and they will come out to watch good stories. So there's still an opportunity there despite what has happened to Showmax. The industry will take a hit, but then if we can organize amongst ourselves, just make your stories are great, and then we just do the work of audience building, because I think that's what's missing. No one is doing the work of audience building and developing the audience. But when we all get together and do that work, we will literally make our stories bankable, and the commerce bit of it will come through easily.
I feel like there's a huge opportunity for that audience building. Like you always see in Nigeria, like, oh, this filmmaker has made this much, but then they also have so many cinemas. And of course, it's also a highly populated country in comparison to this, but it's like, what can we do with our city? What can we do with our country? What can we do with different counties? Even in terms of community. And I feel like there's a real opportunity to come together to showcase our stories. It needs to be done more and more.
It has started. So Bigger Motion, which is a distribution company, we're collaborating to actually go show Supermodo in Machakos, in community centers. Yeah, so there are all these festivals coming up, but then there are also all these people who are creating like alternative spaces for their films. So Alliance Mombasa, I think they run Cinema Mtaani in low-income areas in Mombasa. Yeah, Owoko. So, and they do that every month, and people come out and watch. There's already an ecosystem that's starting to build up. If you look at like Kilifi, the Terrace is always doing screenings every month, and it's screenings of African films. There's a bookshop in Malindi which also just started doing the same. So there's a lot of people who are starting these alternative spaces just to build their audiences where it's not just in Nairobi, but it's also out of Nairobi.
Arnold, before I give the mic over, I wanted to ask you about this issue that came through, like genres, because in your bio, I also read that you've done some sci-fi stuff and you're still doing. What's your opinion on bankability of genres? Is everybody taking the route of the wealthy, rich wife and husband and drug dealer, and because that is more bankable?
Most of us want to write genre projects just because we've grown up watching a lot of these. But I think in terms of making them bankable, I think they're an easy and a quick way for an audience to quickly identify what this is. We know crime thrillers. We know what horror is. We know what sci-fi is. We know what fantasy is. So it's a quick way to identify that. And I think it's a quick way to market it too. That's one way of doing it. But I think also for me and for some of the writers in my circles, part of what we're trying to think of is, what does that look like for a Kenyan audience or for a Kenyan story? And what does that look like for an African story? So it's about aliens, but, what are aliens in the African context, really?
They
right?
never land in
Kenya. They should land here first. Right? This is an easy place to conquer. But that's the kind of thing we're doing with Studio M&A, and that's kind of what we're trying, because that's specifically business design, specifically to create genre projects. So we are thinking a lot about that, and I think that could be one way in which we can do that.
I know you've mentioned the kind of films, or rather the kind of stories that are being told every day, and I will say the audience is hungry for more. We run an event called Shots, and Shots, where we show short African films, and it's always themed. So it's happening in October. You wear your shorts, you watch short African films, and you take shots. And when we decided to go out of the usual, so we used to have love in Feb, patriotism in June, and then horror in October. But when we decided to go out of that, our most successful edition was actually last year with Afrofuturism, because we're we're experimenting with Afrofuturism, and people came dressed up. We had the biggest audience because guys are like, oh, we want to watch this. So I think people kind of need to take the risk and go out of what they're used to, because the audience is smart enough to actually want to watch things and internalize them.
You just need to go to KOT and see how there's so much pent-up intelligence that needs to come out. Sorry, I was just going to say that.
Yeah, and just speaking about the audience, we're talking about a young population. I am already way past the place where we used to call ourselves youths, which sounds so sad. And then you look at the median age, and it's 20. And it's like, that's insane. But these guys have grown up watching anime and watching just amazing stuff that is now becoming more mainstream. And so I think there's an opportunity. And when you look at even just our audience, even Kenyan audiences right now, when you're thinking about events like Otamatsuri, and, there's massive opportunity for genre projects to really take off. So that's a big thing.
We are going to open the floor as usual. This is a safe place.
Good evening, everybody. The hamster, non-liar. I think mine, one is to state there are a couple of events pages actually on Instagram that actually post places that are doing screenings. So in Nairobi, I know usually have a slot, and I think Nairobi Bob Fiesta also does the same for if there are screenings or anything that's going to happen, they post it. Mine is a thank you to the whole panel for a bit stating the obvious. I'm going to start by saying something. Is there a space in the country for, and I know we are all, me included, I'm a known hater. Plots that are basic affect my brain. I sometimes cry. 2, is there then a need for our commercial stations, our NTV, our Citizen, to also every once in a while pick up something that will stimulate the audiences? Because we can't just be, hey, look, I came from the ghetto, I'm hitting on a rich girl, the parents don't like me, blah, blah, blah. Somebody inconsequential is going to die. It's going to slightly affect the plot for 2 episodes, then it's not going to affect the plot anymore. Yes, another thing. Now, this one is a writer's question. Do we actually need to have character death for the growth of plot? Because quite a lot of it is our actors are sometimes the problem of typecasting. I cannot remember his name, may he rest in peace, but the actor who acted as Papa Shirandula, in my head, I don't think that man could do anything else without all of us going ahead and going and say, oh, that's Papa Shirandula. Yes, even when he did the Coca-Cola ad, we were still, oh yeah, that's Papa Shirandula doing a Coca-Cola ad. So allowance for character death. Are we brave enough to kill characters that people like? The other thing, I know this is more of a government problem and not really a production problem, but it's very expensive to film in the country. It's why productions are usually very rushed because, well, calling back people to reshoot a scene is very expensive. So sometimes, like I said, I understand the plot lines that don't plot, but yes, hamster, not liar. I'm done.
I think I'll take the character death one. I think they should die. But I'll say this. The challenges we have in the writers' rooms are beyond just sitting in the writing room. I was on sugar, so thank you for trying to support. It's okay. It's all right. There's only love. There's only love in the room. Part of the challenges you'll have are you've got mandates that come down from beyond your writer's room. Even in a commercial project, you'll still have producers that have, certain things that they want or certain things that are needed for the story to go forward. So it's trying to balance those things, and it gets tricky when you don't have the time to do it. If you do have the time in development to develop your story, then at some point you might be able to work. It's not really a compromise, but you might be able to find a way to do what is mandated, but in a more intelligent or more story-driven way. So it goes back to time in the writer's room, time in developing those stories. And that's just something we need to figure out. How do we pay those writers to stay in those writers' rooms and work for those hours? As for character death, yes, if it makes sense for the story. Some of these guys, I'll say this, somebody like Papa made a living beyond just the show itself, right? I think at that time, Citizen allowed him to take the character, because the character is not his, the character belongs to Citizen, but allowed him to take that character to events and places so that he could make money off that. So there's other considerations. And when you're thinking about somebody like that, for sure he doesn't want that character to die anytime soon. So things like that would also influence that. But yeah, our world has evolved. I haven't seen a show like Papa in quite a while. So we have evolved. We have evolved into telenovelas. You're complaining about those. But the beauty of telenovelas is that they do end, right? So they have 150-something, 200 episodes, but it does end. The unfortunate part of that is the next one that will come over will just take some of those storylines and kind of do them again. But there's evolution. In terms of distribution, and this is a question actually I'd asked earlier that I'd wanted to go, like the future. I'm doing a somewhat selfish plug. We are looking at phones, right? We're talking about kids, population, everyone is on a smartphone. I don't know about you guys, but the microdrama ads that show up on TikTok, those things reel me in, man. Even the one that, I know this story is bad. I know this acting is terrible, but here I am going to Dailymotion to look for it for free. Because I just want to know what is going to happen to this guy. And, there's one I really watched a lot of, and they did the same thing for 3 blocks of 30 episodes, where this character is not known to be the king of the world or whatever, and they'll hate on her until she finally reveals. After she revealed, she went to another set of people, and the same thing happened again. But there's a way in which we're trying to use that to tell our stories as well. So there's a new one out there called Influencer Mwitu that I wrote, and it's on Base. Get your Safaricom Base, all right? Download it today and go watch it. First 10 episodes are up, I think.
We've come to the end of part 1 of our conversation on making Kenyan stories bankable. Next week, we're going to have part 2 of this conversation, and we'll be discussing ownership, monetization models, platform dynamics, and the practical realities of working within Kenya's evolving film and TV ecosystem. We'll also have more questions from the guests who came to Industry Talks, where we recorded this episode live. If you have any comments or feedback, feel free to reach out to us via my social media or Industry Talks KE. You can also reach out to Gote Institute. We'll make sure to read your comments and take in your feedback as we continue to produce this show and put together live events at the Gote Institute. Until then, see you next week.
VIP Access Season 5 is proudly supported by the Gote Institute Nairobi.